Merry Christmas, everybody. Okay, so I'm going to piggyback immediately off of Greg's last video where he was talking about Civil War era because we actually have a relic here in the office, which are Confederate state war bonds. And if you can see here, we've got 8 coupons down here at the bottom that were each worth about $1,000 a piece. So we got $8,000 in war bonds that were issued by the Confederate States of America. Fascinating. And today, you know how much it's worth? 0. So careful what you're investing in. All right, so now I want to talk about last week. There was a lot of headlines. First of all, the stock market hit an all-time high right after Jerome Powell of the Fed announced that he was going to be leading with 3 interest rate cuts next year. So the market responded positively, and we saw stock prices go up to their all-time high. Now, I'm now going to quote Warren Buffett. Greg and I used to put a lot of quotes in our Monday missives, and so this is one of my favorite ones of his. He says, in regards to investing in the stock market, you should be fearful when others are greedy, but greedy when others are fearful. So now we're going to look at whether others in the stock market are being fearful or greedy. My position is they're being greedy. And I'm going to be looking down at my notes because I've got a few different facts here. But there's actually a fear index that we can watch and record. It's called the VIX. And it was actually at the lowest point it's been since before the pandemic, which means that the fear quotient is at the lowest it's been since the pandemic. So people are not fearful. What does that mean they are? Well, the alternative is greedy. And we saw the stock market boost up. Then, last week in the Financial Times, it was reported that corporate bankruptcies have soared as high rates and the end of COVID aid have hit businesses hard. So the stock market was this high. Meanwhile, it's being reported that corporate bankruptcies are at an all-time high. Then, over in Zero Hedge, I read some other fascinating articles. So in October, this is pretty important. In October, the number of delinquent subprime auto loans hit the highest rate ever for delinquencies. Subprime autos, you remember the term subprime from the housing meltdown that we had in 07 and 08, right? Well, they do the same thing for auto loans. It's people with bad credit that they have higher interest rate loans so that they can have a car. Well, those delinquencies were at an all-time high ever in history in October. Meanwhile, stock market's high. Then there was a rise in Google searches for give back your car to the bank. So what is that telling you? It says that things aren't good out there. Meanwhile, the stock market's at an all-time high. Then this is crazy. You remember a couple weeks ago, we talked about how in October, student loan payments were going to restart in October. Now, they had been put on pause during the pandemic to give people a breather, right? Well, they were picking back up in October. The Biden administration just reported that 40% of student loan borrowers skipped their payment that was supposed to restart in October. So that means out of the 22 million borrowers who have student loan payments, 8.8 million didn't make those payments. And by the way, the average payment is about $500 a month. So that's a stretch, but it's not going to bankrupt you. But it's too much of a stretch, apparently, for 40% of the population who had those loans. Here's the other interesting thing, is that student loans are the largest asset on the U.S. balance sheet. So the U.S. has $1.6 trillion outstanding in student loans, and 40% of those haven't restarted payments yet. So then there was one last report in the tri-state area of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, where the economic analysis was that business climate remains much worse than normal. So, and that's the hub of the economic system in the U.S. So let's bring it back. Do I think this is a great time to be in the stock market because it's going to keep going up? No, this goes back to Warren Buffett's quote: "Be fearful of the stock market when everyone else is greedy," and that's what we are. I think it's a far overreaction to the Fed announcing lower interest rates because the economy does not justify that kind of movement. Meanwhile, we are progressing very well. Greg mentioned gold prices continue to go up. That's for different reasons. That's because of uncertainty in the economy. And that's where we think you're going to find a good year ahead of us. Okay, with that, again, Merry Christmas, everybody, and we'll see you next week.